Part 1, The Phone Call That Shouldn't Have Come. I hadn't spoken to my brother in nearly 8 years when I got the call. It was mid-November, one of those days where the light fades early and the silence inside the house feels heavier than it should. I remember the rain outside, the faint ticking of the heater, and the way I didn't recognize the number at first. I let it ring to voicemail. Then it rang again. Something told me to answer. Hello? A pause. Then his voice. It's me. He didn't have to say his name. I knew it. The tone, the silence threaded between words, only one person spoke like that. Like he was trying to control a fire from the inside out. Daniel, I said. He sighed. Yeah. 8 years gone, and just that, yeah. I didn't ask how he found my number. I didn't ask why now. Instead, I asked the only thing that mattered. What's wrong? Another pause. Then. It's about her. She's missing. Her. Lena. Daniel's wife. And once, before everything, my best friend. I stood up without realizing it, heart thudding like it was remembering something my brain had tried to forget. Missing how? She never came home last night, he said. Cars still in the driveway. Phones in the kitchen. It's like she vanished. And the police? They don't care yet. Adults vanish all the time, right? No sign of a struggle, no forced entry. I filed the report. But you know how that goes. I did. I'd been a detective before I wasn't. Before I left the job, the city, the life. Before I buried myself in the quiet. I need you to come back, Daniel said. Why me? His voice cracked, just slightly. Because you're the only one who ever really knew her. I didn't say yes. But I was already packing. Part 2, Her Absence, Everywhere. The town hadn't changed. Not really. It was still tucked between hills and empty roads, still full of old houses with sagging porches and people who didn't wave unless they knew your name. Daniel's house sat at the end of a cul-de-sac, a 2-story gray box with a porch light that flickered even in daylight. He opened the door before I could knock. He looked worse than I expected. Thinner. Eyes red. Stubble creeping up a face that used to be too proud for that kind of thing. She's still not back, he said before I could speak. Inside, the house smelled like lemon cleaner and something sharper, anxiety, maybe. Lena's mug was still on the counter. A sweater draped over the couch. Her shoes by the door. It looked like she'd just stepped out. That's what unsettled me. Nothing felt wrong. But the wrongness was everywhere. Daniel walked me through the timeline, the details. She left work at 6, he said. Came home. We had dinner. Watched part of a movie. Then she went upstairs to take a bath. I fell asleep on the couch. And when you woke up? She was gone. Just gone. No signs of a break-in? He shook his head. Nothing. Not even the front door left open. I walked through the house alone after that. Her perfume still hung in the air upstairs. A book half-read on the nightstand. Phone charging beside it. A robe on the floor. But in the closet, something strange. There were clothes missing. I said nothing. Went back downstairs. You sure she didn't leave on her own? I asked carefully. Daniel glared. She wouldn't. People change. Not Lena. I didn't argue. But I'd seen it before. More than once. Sometimes people don't run because they're scared. They run because they've already left. Quietly. Without needing a door to slam. Check her computer? I asked. Password protected. She never shared it. I turned to him. Did she ever talk about someone? Anyone from her past? Someone who might have. No. You sure? She would have told me. I looked at him closely then. The way he said it. Defensive. And suddenly I remembered something she said to me once, years ago, back when we were still allowed to be close. Daniel hears what he wants. Not what's said. I didn't say that out loud. Instead, I asked, do you have any old photos of her? He led me into the office. Pulled out a box from under the desk. I flipped through them, birthdays, Christmas mornings, blurry beach shots, and then one photo that stopped me cold. Lena, standing by the lake behind my parents' old cabin. Smiling at the camera. My arm around her shoulders. Daniel's nowhere in sight. And on the back, in her handwriting, 4 words. The summer we lied. Part 3, The Summer We Lied. I hadn't seen that photo in over a decade. But the second I turned it over and saw her handwriting, saw those 4 words, I was back there. Back to the summer everything changed. It was the year before Daniel and Lena got married. The 3 of us had gone up to the cabin for a weekend that turned into 2 weeks. Daniel spent most of it working remotely, stressed about some early promotion. I spent most of it avoiding my phone. Lena. She spent most of it sitting beside me on the dock. Bare feet in the water. Laughing when she thought he wasn't listening. We talked a lot back then. Sometimes it was harmless. Sometimes it wasn't. One night, the sky was red-orange and the water was still. I remember she turned to me and said, "You ever feel like you're living someone else's life?" I didn't answer. Because I knew exactly what she meant. And I knew what would happen if I said yes. That weekend, something passed between us. Nothing physical. Just a look. A shared silence. The kind you bury so deep, it hums beneath everything that follows. Then she married him. And I didn't stop it. Because I thought if I did, I'd lose both of them. Now, I held that photo again. A ghost of something unfinished. And it felt like maybe I had never stopped being part of her story. Even after I walked away. I slipped the photo into my coat pocket. Daniel poured himself a drink, midday, no hesitation. Maybe she left, he said suddenly. Maybe she couldn't stand me anymore. It wasn't sarcasm. Just resignation. I thought you said she wouldn't leave. I don't know what she would or wouldn't do, he muttered. There it was, cracked open. You said you ate dinner together, I said. Was anything off? He hesitated. She was quiet. She kept checking her phone. She expecting someone? No. She said it was a work thing. I thought about the missing clothes in the closet. The robe on the floor like it had been dropped in a hurry. Did you check your security cams? I asked. Didn't have any. Never needed them. Can I see her phone? He brought it from upstairs. Passcode screen locked. I took it, turned it slowly in my hand. Do you know the passcode now? No. You never watched her type it in? She was private. Always said some things were hers alone. I turned it over again. Set it down. I might be able to get into it, I said. Give me time. He nodded. Then he asked the question he hadn't dared ask until now. You think someone took her? I looked at him carefully. Then said the only thing I could honestly say. I think someone was waiting. That night, I stayed in the guest room. Didn't sleep much. Kept replaying things she'd said to me in the past, half jokes, comments in passing, pieces that didn't seem important until now. If I disappeared, would anyone notice? Do you think secrets rot faster in small towns? Sometimes, I feel like I'm more memory than person. I stared at the ceiling and thought about the lake. That photo. The silence between us that summer. And what she was trying to tell me now. Not with words. But with absence. Because Lena hadn't just vanished. She'd left a trail. And I was the only one who knew where to start looking. Part 4, the first lie we both believed. I woke just after 5. The house was quiet. Too quiet. No creaks, no pipes, just that kind of stillness that feels staged, like a set built for someone who's no longer coming back. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table with Lena's phone. I wasn't a tech expert, but I still remembered enough from the job to try a few password bypass methods. Took an hour. On the 7th attempt, the screen flickered and unlocked. No fingerprint. No Face ID. Just a 4-digit code. Something personal. I opened her texts first. Nothing suspicious, messages from coworkers, reminders, grocery lists, group chats about baby showers and birthdays she never seemed to attend. Then I checked her call logs. And there it was. A number she called 5 times the night before she vanished. No name. No contact photo. Just digits. Burned into the screen like a mark. Area code from our old town. I stared at it, a creeping feeling forming behind my ribs. I copied it down, then checked her saved notes. Most were mundane, passwords, shopping lists, quotes. But one was different. Titled, August. It was a single sentence. I can't pretend anymore. I think I still love him. My breath caught. There was no name. But I didn't need one. I knew. I went outside, phone still in hand, walked down to the edge of the backyard where the old garden shed leaned at an angle. Somewhere in the trees beyond it, Lena used to sit and read when she needed space. Daniel called it her disappearing spot. Funny, now. I remembered the way she looked when she read, still, focused, like the world quieted for her in a way it never did for the rest of us. That's when I noticed something. Footprints. Old, nearly erased by rain and wind, but still there. Leading past the shed into the trees. I followed. About 30 yards in, I found it, a chair, rusted but intact. A thermos. An old, cracked book of poetry. Tucked inside the pages was an envelope. Unsealed. My name on the front. Not Daniel's. Mine. I didn't open it. Not yet. I walked back to the house, heart thudding. Daniel was in the kitchen, holding the same glass of whiskey he hadn't washed since yesterday. He looked up. "You look like you've seen a ghost," he said. "I think I found something." He blinked. "What?" "Lena left me a note." He froze. "She what?" "I found it by the woods. In her reading spot." His voice went low, steady, dangerous. "Why would she leave you a note and not me?" "I don't know." "Don't lie to me." I stepped forward. "I'm not." He set the glass down too hard. It cracked on the counter. "You don't get to show up after almost a decade and pretend you're the one she trusted," he said. "She didn't trust you, Daniel," I said quietly. His eyes darkened. And then he said something I didn't expect. "She told me about that summer." I blinked. "What?" He nodded, jaw tightening. "She told me about the cabin. About the looks. The silences. The things you didn't do but should've. And you married her anyway?" "I thought I could win," he said. "That's what you do with people like her. You keep them. You don't keep people, Daniel." He stared at me, breathing hard. "I was always waiting for her to leave," he said. "I just didn't think it would be with you." I didn't have time to respond. Because his phone buzzed on the table. A message. One line. From the number Lena had called the night she vanished. He's here. And she's not alone. Part 5, The Person I Didn't Know I Was. Daniel read the message twice. Then he looked at me, eyes wide, mouth just slightly open, like he was trying to process the ground shifting beneath him and realizing it had started long before he noticed. "She's with someone," he whispered. I didn't respond. The silence stretched between us, full of old resentments neither of us had said aloud. Then he asked, "Do you think she sent that?" "No," I said. "But someone knew you'd read it." He ran a hand over his face. "Who the hell is he?" I didn't answer right away. Because deep down, I was already starting to guess. I went back to the guest room and finally opened the envelope Lena had left me. Inside, a folded piece of paper and a photograph. The photo was old, grainy, taken at night. It showed a child, maybe 6 or 7, playing in front of a small house with white shutters and a chain-link fence. A woman stood behind him. Not Lena. Someone else. On the back, in Lena's handwriting. "Not everything I buried stayed buried." The note said more. "Michael. If you found this, I'm already gone. Maybe not forever, but for now." I never stopped thinking about that summer. Not because of what didn't happen, but because of what could have. You were the only one who ever listened without expecting something in return. Daniel wasn't always cruel. But over time, he grew possessive. Small. He needed me to belong to him, and I couldn't. There's something I never told either of you. A person I lost before I ever met you. Before Daniel. Before everything. A boy. His name was Eli. He would have been 13 this year. I kept him secret, because I was told to. Because I was young. Because I didn't know how to fight back. And then one day, he was gone. Just, gone. But I think I found him again. Or maybe he found me. Please don't come looking. But if you do, come alone. I trust you. I never stopped. Lena. Eli. A name I'd never heard. And a life she had lived entirely before me. My hands were shaking by the time I finished the note. I reread it 3 times, and with each pass, the shape of Lena changed. She wasn't the woman who ran. She was the woman who'd been running long before I knew her. I stepped outside, phone in hand, heart racing. I didn't know what I was doing until I was already dialing the number from her call log. It rang once. Then a voice. Male. Calm. Too calm. "Hello? Who is this?" I asked. Silence. "Then, she told you not to call. Where is she?" "She's not ready to come back." "Is Eli real?" A pause. Then, he never stopped being real. She just needed someone to believe that. My skin prickled. "Why now?" I asked. "Because we're not hiding anymore." Then the line went dead. I turned to go back inside and found Daniel at the window, watching me. His expression unreadable. "How long have you known?" he asked. "About what?" "That she still loved you." I didn't answer. He nodded to himself, slowly. Then, almost gently, "I think you should leave." And for once, I didn't fight him. Because the truth was, I already had. Part 6, What She Left Behind. I drove through the night. No music. No talking. Just the sound of tires humming against the road and the echo of her voice in my head, "Don't come looking. But if you do, come alone." That's how I knew I was on the right path. Because I hadn't been alone in a long time. The photograph from the envelope led me to a town I didn't know the name of until I passed the wooden sign at the edge of the woods. Fowler Ridge, Pop 611. It was the kind of place where no one asked questions, and everyone saw too much. I showed the photo around. Got polite shrugs. Half-truths. Until I found a woman who ran the corner store. Gray sweater. Thin braid down her back. Her eyes narrowed when she saw the boy in the photo. "I've seen him," she said. "Where?" "Near the East Trail. With a woman. Not from around here." "Recently?" "Last week, maybe." "Why?" "She's someone I knew," I said. "She disappeared." The woman nodded like she'd heard stories like this before. Sometimes people don't disappear. They just finally choose somewhere that fits. I left her with the photo and my number. Then I drove to the trailhead she mentioned. Parked. Walked. The woods were quiet. Dense. I moved carefully, eyes scanning the trees for any flash of movement. Birds flitted above. A deer in the distance. The sun filtered through like stained glass. Then I saw it. A cabin. Wood slats, a metal roof, a small porch. Smoke rising faintly from a chimney. I approached like I was walking through someone else's dream. I didn't knock. I just stood there, uncertain. Then the door opened. And she was there. Lena. Her hair longer, face thinner, but her eyes, still hers. She didn't look surprised. Just, tired. She stepped onto the porch, arms crossed loosely. "You came," she said. "I had to." "No," she said gently. "You chose to." We stood in silence. The kind that comes when words would only ruin it. Then she said, "He's inside. Sleeping." "Eli." She nodded. "He's not mine. Not technically. Not legally. But when I found him, I knew." I sat on the porch steps. "How long?" "Almost a year." "And Daniel?" She looked away. "He stopped seeing me a long time ago. Long before I left." "Why didn't you tell me?" She sat beside me. "Because if I told you, you would have saved me. And I didn't want to be saved. I wanted to choose." I nodded. "I read your letter." She gave a soft smile. "Then you already know I never stopped loving you." There was no apology. No grand gesture. Just two people sitting beside the truth they'd run from in opposite directions. "He's not mine, Lena." "He doesn't need you to be," she said. "He just needs someone who won't leave." Then she looked at me, eyes steady. "I can't promise I'll stay. But I promise I won't run alone anymore." And in that moment, I didn't care where we'd been. Only where we were now. From inside the cabin, I heard the soft creak of floorboards. A small voice. "Mama?" Lena stood, turned to the door. "I'm here," she called back. Then she looked at me. And asked the question I'd been waiting years to hear. "Will you come meet him?" Part 7, a name spoken softly. I followed her into the cabin. The space was small, 2 rooms, 1 window looking out over the woods. A kettle hummed quietly on the stove, and the faint smell of cedar clung to the air. It wasn't much. But it felt lived in. Chosen. Safe. Eli stood in the center of the room, one hand holding the edge of a worn blanket, the other rubbing sleep from his eyes. He looked at me. Not with fear. Not even with curiosity. Just silence. Like he'd seen enough people come and go to know the difference between the ones who stay and the ones who disappear. Lena knelt beside him, brushed hair from his forehead. "This is Michael," she said softly. "He's an old friend." Eli blinked. Said nothing. I crouched down to his level. "Hi," I said. "I used to know your mom a long time ago." He looked at me for a long moment. Then, barely above a whisper, he said. "You're the one from the picture." I turned to Lena. She nodded. "I didn't show him all of it," she said. "Just enough." Eli stepped forward, tentative. "Do you have kids?" he asked. "No," I said. "But I used to think about it. Then, life happened." He nodded like he understood. Then he held out his hand. And I shook it. That's how it started. The next 3 days blurred in the way quiet things do. We stayed in the cabin. Talked over black coffee and simple meals. Took long walks through the woods. Watched Eli draw pictures of animals that didn't exist. Lena and I didn't speak much about the past. Not directly. We talked around it, like smoothing the edge of something too sharp to hold. One night, as Eli slept in the next room, I asked her, "Do you still think about going back?" She didn't look at me. Just stared into the fire. "I think about who I was there," she said. "And I don't want to be her again." "I get that." She looked at me finally. "Do you think it's possible to start over? Really start?" I nodded. "I think it's possible to stop pretending we haven't already." We sat in that flickering silence, and it felt like a kind of prayer. Then her voice, softer than anything before. "If I asked you to stay, would you?" I turned to her. Not rushed. No hesitation. Yes. The next morning, we woke to frost on the window and a note slipped under the door. No name. Just one line. "They're still looking." I read it twice. Then again. Lena stood behind me. Silent. Her fingers trembled. I turned to her. "Do you know who?" She swallowed hard. "I think Daniel knows I found Eli. Would he come here?" She didn't answer. Because we both knew he already had. Part 8, The Things We Bury Quietly. We left the cabin before sunrise. No bags. No plan. Just what we could carry and the understanding that safety is sometimes just another word for borrowed time. Eli slept in the back seat of Lena's car, head against the window, breathing soft. I watched her drive, steady, hands tight on the wheel, eyes set on the horizon like it might offer something gentler than the past. Neither of us spoke for a long time. Then I said, "Where do we go?" She didn't look at me. Somewhere new. Somewhere with no trail behind it. 2 towns later, we stopped for gas and coffee. I paid in cash. She wore sunglasses. Eli asked if this was a game, and Lena said yes. I wasn't sure she was wrong. By evening, we reached a motel off a forgotten road in a town that didn't show up on my phone's map. The sign out front blinked weakly, vacant, as if it was more confession than offer. We took a room at the end of the hall. 2 beds, thin curtains, the distant sound of trucks passing on the highway. Eli fell asleep watching cartoons he didn't understand. Lena sat at the edge of the bed, clutching the photo of him as a baby, one I hadn't seen until yesterday. One she'd taken in secret, when everything was still fragile and full of maybe. "Do you think he knows?" she asked me. "Not yet. But he will. And when he does?" I looked at her. "Then we tell him the truth. Quietly. Carefully. Together." She nodded. Wiped her eyes. Didn't cry. She hadn't yet. At midnight, I stepped outside for air. Daniel stood by the vending machines. I didn't flinch. Didn't call for help. Didn't move. He looked thinner. Harder. Like whatever had been left of the man I once called my brother had turned to something else. "How long have you known?" he asked. I kept my voice low. "Since she disappeared." He nodded slowly. "You think she chose you," he said. "You think this is some kind of romance." "No," I said. I think she chose herself. And you never forgave her for that. He stepped closer. You don't deserve her. Maybe not, I said. But I never tried to own her. He looked down. Then up again. And I saw it, just for a second, the grief behind his anger. The love that had curdled into something unrecognizable. She left everything, he said. No. She took what mattered. He didn't argue. Just walked away into the dark. Lena was waiting for me inside. Is he gone? She asked. I nodded. She didn't speak. But I crossed the room and sat beside her. Took her hand. She held on like it was the only thing not drifting. We stayed in that town for a month. Then moved on. Eventually, we stopped running. We found a place with tall trees and open sky. A home where Eli could draw monsters on the walls and name them after things he wasn't afraid of anymore. Sometimes Lena would wake in the middle of the night and check the locks 3 times before coming back to bed. Sometimes I would stare out the window, waiting for footsteps that never came. But most nights, we were quiet. Together. Unbroken. And that's the thing about the past. You don't erase it. You just stop letting it decide who you are.